All right, we're back with some more self-defense stories for you. And we're going to start in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where we have two victims, both 18 years old. One was injured, one was unharmed. And we got a 16-year-old robbery suspect as well as that was killed, and another suspect that was unharmed. A 16-year-old Milwaukee boy is dead following a shooting near 87th and Silver Spring on Friday, August 11th. It happened around 10:40 a.m. Police say an armed suspect attempted to rob two victims. One of the victims was also armed and gunshots were fired, subsequently striking the armed robbery suspect and the unarmed robbery suspect. The suspect, a 16-year-old boy, was killed. The robbery victim was shot. An 18-year-old Milwaukee man was transported to the local hospital for treatment of non-fatal injuries. Milwaukee police are seeking an additional unknown suspect. Anyone with information is told to call. So these robbery suspects, teenage kids, and I'm calling them kids because when you're 16, you're a kid, and they're trying to rob some people that had a gun, and they ended up shooting back. And I don't know, when they're robbing people, if they think they're the only ones in cities nowadays that have guns. But unfortunately for this kid, he learned the hard way that, people are carrying because they have to be. It's not a choice anymore. You live in some of these areas, if you don't have a gun, it's almost stupid in some of these areas. There's still places you can live in the country that you're fine without one, but for the most part, All right, let's move on to Chicago, Illinois, where we got a 24-year-old male victim who was injured and a 28-year-old male suspect who was also injured. And of course, because this is Chicago, what we get is a police department report. So it's not going to have much information. 2 people shot. Victim number 1, 24-year-old male, sustained a gunshot wound to the body. Victim number 1 was transported to the hospital in good condition. A 28-year-old male offender sustained a gunshot wound to the left buttocks. The offender was transported to the hospital in critical condition. The victim was coming out of a residence. The victim, this is reading really bad, when a Buick sedan drove by and an offender from the vehicle fired shots, striking the victim. The victim fired back at the offender, and the offender sustained a gunshot wound to the left buttocks. One offender is in custody. Charges are currently pending. So basically a drive-by that the resident, came out of his house, and he clearly had his gun on him and, fired shots. And one offender, okay, so the guy that in the drive-by was, that got shot in the buttocks, he was arrested apparently in this one, but they're not doing anything, at least to the guy that just was coming out of his house. Okay, so we go to San Antonio, Texas, and we got a male victim who was unharmed, and this looks like a home invasion. A homeowner opened fire on 3 suspects who kicked in his front door on Friday night. The incident happened around 11:55 p.m. Friday at the 18,000 block of Stone Oak Parkway. According to the police, the homeowner immediately grabbed his firearm when the suspect kicked in his door. The suspect fled the scene and were not found after the homeowner opened fire. The suspect who kicked the door down was holding a rifle, officials say. So these 3 guys kick in a guy's door, and he grabs a firearm and he fires shots at him. It doesn't sound like that he shot any of them, that any of the bullets hit anybody, but he scared them away anyway, and that's good enough to get him through that night. All right, we go to Tucson, Arizona, where we got an adult female victim who was unharmed and an adult male suspect that was killed, and this looks like another home invasion. All right, let's see what we got here. A man is dead after a shooting in Pima County Friday. On August 11th, around 2 p.m., so in the middle of the day, deputies were called to a shooting report near Pyle and Garvey Roads. Officials said initial information received from dispatch indicated a man allegedly tried to break into a woman's home in the area. Authorities said the woman yelled for the men to leave, but he continued to attempt to force his way into the home. During the incident, the woman reportedly armed herself with a gun and fired a shot out the window to attempt to scare the male away. They added that the suspect then allegedly tried to reach inside and disarm the woman, but she fired one shot and hit the man. Deputies attempted life-saving measures while on scene, but the suspect died from his injuries. Officials said the woman was uninjured and cooperative with the deputies. The investigation is underway, and no arrests have been made at this time. So this guy's trying to get in this woman's window, and she, fires a shot at him. He tries to grab a gun. She fires at him. She shoots. And in this article, they say no arrests have been made at this time. That's clearly self-defense. But this is NBC News article, so that explains why they're saying no arrests have been made at this time. Because that's clearly self-defense. And this was Arizona, I believe, Pima County. So good for the woman for having a gun and not being afraid to use it. But these things, I talked about this before in some of these, this woman, this is this little incident. Nothing happened to her other than the incident itself. Like, she was unharmed in the whole thing, but mentally, she's going to have problems for a while. Because one, she killed somebody, and two, somebody was trying to break into her house, which makes her then not want to trust, trust being in her house alone if she was alone during that incident. All right, let's go on to Jackson, Mississippi, where we have a female victim who was unharmed. Wow. And another 17-year-old male that was killed. This is another home invasion where a female took the guy out. And this is a 17-year-old. A 17-year-old suspect was killed during an attempted carjacking. Oh, I thought it said home invasion. Officer Sam Brown said the incident happened in the 1100 block of Garden Park Drive around 2:30 a.m. on Friday, August 11th. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a man, his wife, and son. According to the family, the father and son were approached by three suspects who were wearing masks. The suspects demanded money and keys to the vehicle. According to Brown, the man's wife exited the home and fired multiple shots. One of the suspects, a 17-year-old, was shot during the incident. Brown said he died on the scene. Police said the other suspects returned shots and ran away from the scene. They were able to identify one of the suspects as a 16-year-old. The teen later arrested on Violet Street. So a 17-year-old was killed, and a 16-year-old suspect, ran away after firing shots. And this lady comes out of the house to basically protect her husband and her child. And that we're seeing a lot of with the women really starting to be more, more gun owners, and a lot of these incidents are these self-defense incidents. A lot of them, especially the home invasions, are actually women that are, taking out the men. So let's see what we got here. We got Sun City West, Arizona. I think that's a retirement community. I've heard of that. Sun City West. I think my dad stayed there for a while. All right, let's go to, they have a victim that's an unharmed adult. It doesn't say if it's male or female. And then our suspect is a male family member. Let's see what happened here. A man is in the hospital after he reportedly shot while trying to break into his parents' home. Great. In Sun City West early Saturday morning. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office says it happened just after 6 a.m. near El Mirage and Beardsley Roads. When deputies arrived, they found a man had been shot. He was taken to the hospital with possible life-threatening injuries. Preliminary information shows the man was trying to break into his parents' home, resulting in the shooting. The man was reportedly not allowed at the home because of drug-related issues. It's unclear which parent shot the man, if anyone will face any charges. So this is also something that is becoming more and more common. You have parents who have these kids that have, bad drug problems. And at some point they have to, they have to cut everything off. And I'm sure that these parents didn't want to actually, whichever one was the one that fired the shot, I'm sure they didn't want to actually have to shoot this kid. But, he was breaking into their house, and he's not allowed there. And I don't know. Hopefully they don't face any charges. It's Arizona, so it could go either way. But hopefully this is like a wake-up call for the kid, too, that's on the drugs, that, his parents aren't messing around anymore, and he can't. I'll keep doing that stuff. So let's go on to Houston, Texas, because Houston, Texas loves self-defense. We got a 35-year-old female victim who was unharmed, and this is listed as a significant other, current or former. Colin Lockett is 35 years old, and he was injured and arrested, and this looks like a domestic violence incident. A married couple, all right, here we go, was sent to the hospital after getting into a fight that turned into a shooting in the Acres Homes neighborhood. The Houston Police Department said shots were fired at about 3:45 a.m. Nothing good happens after midnight, people. In the 7400 block of Mount Street with an 8-year-old girl inside the home. When police arrived, officers said they found a man who was shot in the mouth being treated at the scene. Investigators believe the man was arguing with his wife when it turned into a physical fight. Police say at some point the husband threatened his wife with a gun when she shot him once in the mouth using her own firearm. Investigators say the couple's 8-year-old daughter was not injured, but said she did hear the shooting or the gunshot, noting that she didn't see anything. Police say the man was taken to the hospital and was expected to be okay. The woman was also hospitalized for a head injury. According to the safety tracker, 2 homicides were reported in the last 12 months in the area, including Highland Heights. Okay, whatever. So, if marital arguments are being solved by gunfire, we're going to have serious problems in our country, because if you think about how many times a married couple gets in an argument and they're pulling out a gun and the guy's saying, well, I'm going to shoot you, and then the wife pulls out her gun and actually does shoot him. I mean, these incidents are going to be, that's all we're going to be talking about if it gets to that. I mean, we already know the younger kids, that's how they solve their argument. The preteens and the teens, and even up to, in their 20s now, under 30-year-olds. I mean, older people do too, but that younger age range, they do it most often. And if we're having husband and wife's incidents turning into where they're just having a little argument or not having enough money for the rent or something, that turns into, well, if I take this person out, I don't know. So let's go to Chicago, Illinois. I think this is the second one we have for Chicago today. So our 26-year-old male victim was unharmed, and we got 2 suspects in an armed robbery. One was a 20-year-old male, and the other was an 18-year-old female. So we got the female is joining the guys with the robberies. A rideshare driver. Here we go. Rideshare drivers. These are not safe jobs, and they don't pay enough to do it. Find yourself something else. A rideshare driver shot 2 robbers Saturday morning while on a job in North Lawndale. Chicago police say the 26-year-old driver was dropping off a passenger around 1 a.m. Especially don't do Uber or something like that when you're doing an overnight thing. Dangerous. When 2 people, a man, 20, and an 18-year-old woman, walked up to him and announced a robbery, the male suspect took the victim's cell phone, then fired shots as the 2 robbers tried to flee the scene. Police say the driver, who is a concealed carry license holder, returned fire, striking the man in the leg and grazing the woman in the arm. The driver was not injured. Good thing. The man was taken to the hospital in good condition, and the woman declined medical attention. She probably has a record and didn't want to end up in the hospital and get caught. Although cops, it sounds like, already picked her up. So this guy, at least, I mean, he's doing Uber or something like that in the middle of the night in Chicago, in the North Lawndale neighborhood, which is, I'm going to look up the stats for the North Lawndale and see how many homicides they had this year. If you're an Uber driver and you're driving in any kind of bad city in the middle of the night, you need to know they've had 17 homicides in the North Lawndale area this year. Just this year, 17 already out of the 372 they've had in Chicago so far. So, but if you're an Uber driver and you're driving in one of these areas that are bad and you're doing it in the middle of the night, you almost have to have a gun, because that's the prime time. I still would advise people against doing that. I've used Uber. I like it. I mean, it's really good. You go to a baseball game or something and you want to have a couple beers at the game and you don't want to have to drive home. It's perfect. It's the best thing that you could do if there's not, you know, some kind of metro transit nearby you. But I don't know if I've talked about this in my videos a lot, that that's one of the most dangerous jobs you can have. And those guys, with how much wear and tear you put on your car and how much you pay in repairs and gas and all that stuff, it doesn't pay enough to risk your life. And maybe some people think that it's a good job, that, you know, I can pick my own hours, I can do this and I can do that, and I can see all the pluses to it. But especially doing it late at night in a bad area, you're almost asking for trouble. And that guy got lucky; he wasn't injured. But a lot of times we read these and it goes the opposite direction, and it's the person, the Uber driver, that's injured, and they picked up the wrong person, or somebody was targeting the person they picked up, or anything can happen, and it just doesn't work out well for the driver. Well, that's all I have for you today, but I'll be back next week with more self-defense stories for you. If you like this kind of stuff, hit that like button and maybe leave a comment in the comments to let YouTube and me know that you like these kind of videos. And if you're not already, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you next week for more self-defense. Thanks for watching.